Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of SBS. Today we're going to be working on the Mazdaspeed3. I'm going to be changing out the front sway bar. Currently it's just the factory one. I have a Whiteline upgraded sway bar I'm going to be putting on with upgraded polyurethane bushings. Now I do have the adjustable sway bar end links actually already on the car, so I'm not going to have to put them on, but now it'll be a cohesive package where it's, you know, everything is adjustable and stiffer instead of it just being the factory sway bar with adjustable end links, because that, while it did work, didn't really work at all. Hopefully this isn't going to be too long of a process. You have to drop the subframe to be able to access the factory sway bar and to install the new sway bar. But I guess the big thing is this was a yearly driven vehicle. It saw every season, it saw all the snow and salt here in Ontario. So it could be a little bit of a headache to try and drop the subframe, but I guess we're gonna find out as we get into it. So let's get to it. Okay, so I got the front wheels off and I got the car in the air. Well, in reverse of what I just said. Just taking a look at the bolts that we're gonna need to remove. These there, as well as on the other side. We're gonna have to get that bolt as well. And obviously, same spot, other side. We're also gonna have to remove the ball joint shaft from the knuckle so that all of this can drop down, and we'll have to remove the rear engine mount so that the subframe can drop while the engine and transmission are still mounted inside the engine bay. So it's actually really straightforward for removing all the subframe pieces. This guard here, going all the way across, uses 14 mil. And another 14 there. And then you don't need to remove this bolt because that's actually attached to the other mounting bracket for this lower part of the subframe guard. And then you got one really big one there, it's actually 21 mil. And then we have two 12 mil there and there. And then this bar can come off. So after you take this bracket off, you're gonna have to get off the exhaust hanger bushings because the lower subframe has the mount for that. So you have to take that off so that all this can swing down without ripping on your exhaust. Very straightforward. I put a breakaway penetrating lubricant on the shaft for the ball joint, so that slides out a little easier. Did that on both ends, and that should be about it.
always got to take off the actual sway bar end links, just detach them from the sway bar itself. You don't have to detach them from up at the shock tower. It's just easier if you do this, because then everything slides down together. Because I have the adjustable Whiteline ones, you have to use an Allen key inside the actual bolt itself at the front. So you want to make sure that you remember to disconnect your sensor for your adjustable headlights if you have those. Otherwise, when you go to drop the subframe, it's just going to rip the plug out completely as you drop it. Okay, now that we have all of the bolts out for the subframe, the lower subframe, we have the exhaust hangers off. And now we have our stabilizer end links disconnected and our ball joints. Now we're able to loosen off the last two remaining subframe bolts and then start to lower it with our transmission jack. So we finally got the old one out. That took way longer than it should have, just because my subframe was having a lot of trouble dropping. It kept getting stuck on my brake rotor on the driver's side. So I had to remove the brake rotor, and then it was getting stuck on the dust shield. So I had to remove the dust shield, and that is how you have to slide it out. You basically have to remove everything. I don't understand how people do this without a lift, because the fact that I'm having this much trouble with one, I don't get it. I don't know how people do it. But if you're doing this without a lift, good for you. Now that we have the stock sway bar out, I'm gonna try and slide in the new Whiteline sway bar. So this should be very interesting, because it was a very tight squeeze to get the old one out. So trying to put the new one in, I imagine is gonna be just as difficult.
1, 2, 3, 4.
But right now I'm just finishing installing the subframe, just finished tightening that bolt and that bolt. The only ones left for the main subframe I gotta do are this one and the same one right there. But those are actually part of the lower subframe as well. So a bolt goes through the lower subframe and then through the upper subframe as well. But when you get your bar in, make sure you raise your subframe up first and then guide it with the bolt on your sway bar end links or your adjustable sway bar end links. Don't tighten everything up yet. Wait until you have your subframe physically fixed to the vehicle first, and then tighten up your bushings and your brackets for your control arm. depending on if you're a first or second Gen Speed 3, and then tighten this up last. It'll be a lot easier for you. I had to take off the dust shield because that got in the way, so some of you may not have to deal with that depending on how you drop your subframe. Everything may be able to avoid your dust shield, your rotor, caliper, everything. But I had a problem with the end of the control arm getting stuck on the caliper, or sorry, on the rotor, and then the dust shield kept stabbing the boot for the ball joint. And I did not want to have a tear in it, so I just took it off because it's only 3 bolts, just annoying. Okay, let's keep assembling.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3,
Alright, so I have the subframe back in, bolted in. It's not torqued yet because I had to play around with the sway bar itself, so that bolt's still loose right there. But everything else is nice and snug. I snugged up the lower engine mount. I also tightened both of our ball joints. I tightened up our control arm bolts, and if you can see back in there, the collars. So those collars are what stops the sway bar from sliding around. So now all that's left is to put the lower portion of the subframe and guard back on across there. Then it's just left, all that's left after that is just our dust shield, our rotor, and then the tires. And then that's it. And you really should get in alignment after doing something like this. So the good news is I don't have any bolts left over. That's good. I just have the nuts for the tires, and that's it. So that means everything went back where it was supposed to go. So I've already tightened everything up. I made sure that our ball joint bolts are tight. I made sure that our adaptive headlight sensor is plugged in. Made sure that our sway bar end links are nice and tight. They are not making any creaking at all. Made sure that our control arm bolts are torqued, both ends. And I made sure that our subframe is back in place and torqued properly so that nothing falls off, because knowing me, that would happen. So everything seems nice and tight. So I just have to put the wheels back on and then we can take it for a drive. So the test drive went really well. It handles substantially better than it did. Very surprising though, because I'm actually using the incorrect mounting brackets. I'm not using the factory ones that have a speed nut built into them. I'm using aftermarket energy suspension ones that I had on the OEM sway bar. The bushings that are on this new bar are actually meant for the OEM bar and the OEM or the energy suspension style bracket. So I'm gonna have to replace those, but that's okay because the bar is already in. I don't have to drop the subframe again. I can just loosen off the 4 bolts for the control arm that go through into the sway bar mounting brackets and just slip off the bushings that are on there now and put on the appropriate ones with the appropriate mounting brackets. Well guys, that is it for this episode of SBS. Thank you so much for watching this. If you tuned in, I hope you had a great time. If you are from the Mazdaspeed community, yeah, I don't frequent any forums or anything, but I had a great time working on this thing. If I helped you, let me know. Just leave a comment. Let me know if I'm an idiot. If I don't know what I'm doing, because clearly I don't, but hey, it's nice if we all get along. If there are things that you want to see me do to Mazdaspeed3, also let me know in the comments below. I do have some other parts that, well, I've already kind of made up my mind what I want to do with this, but if there's other things that you guys want to see, just let me know. But I can tell you right now that I do have one idea that's going to be happening to this thing. But that's it for me. Thanks again for watching, and I really do hope that you guys learned something, or if anything, really just learn from my mistakes. I somehow don't learn from them because I just keep making them. But that's it. I will catch you guys next time.